years ago this month, I flew overseas to go and have what I thought was a routine cosmetic procedure. And a week later, I came back home to Australia, ended up in hospital, not sure if I was even going to make it. This is my surgery horror story. This is probably the first time in the 3 years since I've had my surgery that I'm willing to speak about it. In case you don't already know me, my name's Lara Rose, and in 2023 I flew to Turkey to have a tummy tuck, BBL and liposuction. The reason why I was having a tummy tuck at only 21 years old is I was 100 kilos at my heaviest and I lost 50 kilograms within the space of a year. And of course, when you lose a lot of weight, you're left with a lot of loose skin. So I opted in to have it cut off. When I was going to book my surgery, I did not have a lot of money at the time. I hadn't really popped off on social media yet. I hadn't really been earning a lot in the job that I'm in now. So I obviously had to look at cheaper alternatives. And where does everyone go when they're looking for cheaper alternatives? Turkey. I actually had tried to get a tummy tuck in Australia, but all the doctors said no because I will be wanting to get pregnant within 2 years.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? How did this
That's a bit fucking crazy to say to a woman. That's when I ended up going and looking at Turkey. In Turkey, they would do my tummy tuck, liposuction and BBL all at the same time, where in Australia and most Western countries, they refuse to do that. I've definitely found out why. I did months and months of research prior to reaching out to any surgeons. I was reading subreddits on Reddit. I was reading through Real Self, which is like a plastic surgery website. I was looking through Facebook. I looked high and fucking low to try and find the best surgeon in Turkey for this surgery because obviously I don't want to die. And that's when I stumbled upon this one surgeon who quite a number of people boasted about, and I really liked his surgical results for tummy tucks and BBLs. So I thought, all right, this might be the one. Little did I know that a lot of surgeons in Turkey can fake reviews, they can take down bad reviews, also make you sign things that disable you from being ever able to talk about it on social media or anywhere. But I decided to go with this surgeon. I messaged the surgical company on WhatsApp and I booked my surgery in. It was approximately 1 year from when I messaged them. So I had a fair bit of time to think about whether this was the right thing for me, but I did pay a deposit and went forward with the booking process. Fast forward a year, I had started earning a fair bit more money. My social media career started blowing up a little bit, so I was in a lot better position, but I just thought, you know what? I've already got this booked in, let's go for it. I land in Turkey and the surgery was like a whole package. So you got accommodation, you got transportation and the surgery and the hospital visit as well. When I landed in Turkey, I had a driver already waiting at the airport for me and they picked me up. It was a massive cultural shock for me going to Turkey for the first time. On the way to the hotel, the driver was driving over 120 kilometers an hour while on his phone, not really looking at the road. It was absolutely terrifying. Regardless, we ended up at the hotel and we get into the hotel room and there is no locks on the doors. Not a single lock on the door. And my partner was like, what is going on here? This doesn't feel right. And I ended up looking up the hotel because we didn't actually know what hotel we were staying at. And we found out that this hotel, all the reviews are saying how the cleaners steal stuff out of your bags while you're not there. Smoke, cigarettes, fucking everything disgusting you can imagine in the rooms. We didn't need to see any more. We literally checked out of the hotel 2 seconds later and booked our own hotel. We ended up staying in the Shangri-La, the Bosphorus in Istanbul, which actually ended up being really nice. However, the surgery company then said because we booked our own hotel, they would not help us with any further transportation. We said, that's fine. That's totally fine if that's what we have to do to be able to stay in a secure hotel. The day that I arrived in Turkey was also the day I had to go in for my pre-ops. So after we checked into the new hotel, we headed to the hospital to get my pre-op done. I still hadn't met my surgeon at this point. I hadn't had a consultation or anything like that. So he didn't really know me or what I wanted. And I thought the pre-op would be for that. It wasn't. They took my bloods, they took my vitals, and everything came back perfect, which was good. And I'm really glad that they did that because I wasn't 100% sure if they would. I went back to the hotel, pretty much went straight back to sleep. Came the day of the surgery. I woke up at about 6 a.m. and headed straight to the hospital again. We didn't really know what time I was going to get into surgery, but they took me straight into a hospital room. I had my own private room. The room, upon first look, looked really clean. It looked nice. But if you looked around the room properly, there was liquid dripping on the walls, like bodily liquids. And it was just like, it was a little bit uncomfortable, but it was okay. It wasn't the worst. Like I expect to see that in my own country sometimes. And I have a bunch of nurses come in and ask me to sign some papers. That's when I'm signing my life away. My partner was sitting right next to me, and I was reading through all of the papers, and it made me feel really nervous. It was like, if I die, you can't sue the surgical company or the surgeon. If any complications happen, there is no way to sue, no way to claim anything. I also couldn't share anything on social media or to anybody if anything goes wrong. Can't say anything negative. So I was really scared after that. Then maybe an hour later, the surgeon comes into the room with approximately 10 other people. And this is how he walked into the room. Megan, what do you want? I kid you not, it wasn't, hi Lara. It was, what do you want? In the most monotone way possible. And I knew at that moment that he did not give a single shit about my life or what he was doing. I was terrified. I told him what I wanted, a BBL, a tummy tuck, liposuction, and then he proceeded to tell me to strip in front of 10 other people in the room that I never met in my life. Really fucking awkward. I'm just undressing myself. Window in front of me as well that leads out to the street where everyone could see me, but nevertheless, I took all my clothes off. He immediately just started taking before photos and marking me up at the same time, and then he walked out. And that was it. I didn't see him again. Maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours later, I was taken into surgery. I was pretty scared. One of the doctors did say, just before I fell asleep, don't worry, we'll look after you. Oh my God. I think I actually have a little bit of PTSD, so when I talk about it, sometimes it makes me feel a bit sick. Cut from surgery, I believe it was 9.5 hours later, and the first thing that I remember was waking up dry heaving. I was really sick. I don't know why. I think it was just from the anesthesia, but I was just dry heaving. I was just crying, and then I'd fall back asleep, and I was just like in and out of consciousness. But it must have been like all night. I remember like my boyfriend, he must have just been going through it because I just wake up dry heaving. He couldn't even have a conversation with me yet since 9.5 hours ago when I went into surgery. I was covered in these garments. Oh, I couldn't imagine what it was like for him. The early hours of the morning, I remember I was woken up by about like 4 or 5 nurses, and they told me that I have to get up now for the first time since my surgery. I have to, because they have to take my catheter out. Look, I didn't even know I had a fucking catheter in. And I just remember as they were trying to get me off the bed, it was the most excruciating pain I'd ever been in my entire life. I had just woken up, my stomach had been removed and stitched back together. My whole body had been liposuctioned pretty much, from my arms, my stomach, my inner thighs, my chin, my fucking back, everything had been liposuctioned. So everything hurt. But I also had all of these drains coming out of my body, which I'd just woken up and fucking realized. And one of the drains must have been like pinching on a nerve. It was inside. I had 2 in my groin. I had 1 in the back just above my butt crack. And then I had, maybe it was just the 3. One on this side here, my left side, it was pinching on something. And I could just remember feeling it inside my stomach and it pulling and pinching on something. And I was just screaming and like telling them like, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. I could feel like the stitches in my stomach pulling as they're trying to get me up out of bed. And I'm still half like unconscious as well, mind you. I get up, they take me to the toilet. I sit down on the toilet, and I just remember like being like back and forth, like in and out of consciousness while they're pulling this catheter out of me. I look up and I see this bag. This is a little bit of a trigger warning, but I see this bag across from me at the sink in the bathroom, and this bag contained my stomach. I understand some people like to see stuff once they've had surgery. I don't know if I really wanted that. I was never asked or anything. It was really confronting just seeing my stomach sitting in a fucking bag over there. It gets worse. It gets much worse. I remember waking up in the morning and I was really, really thirsty. I was starting to come to my senses a lot more. I ate a little bit of the food that they gave me. It was all shit. I was really thirsty and I said to my boyfriend, fuck, I really need a drink of water. And they didn't give me any water with my food. So he went to go and see if the nurses could get me some water. He yelled out. Someone said, yep, we'll get you some water. It was really hard to communicate with them because they spoke Turkish, obviously. maybe an hour went by and no one came to bring us any water. So he went and asked another nurse and they said, yep, we'll bring you some water. Another hour went by, still no fucking water. So he went and he asked another nurse and the nurse said that the hospital had ran out of drinking water.
Huh?
What? A hospital with multiple patients ran out of drinking water, one of the things that every human requires to live. Right, that was crazy. So my boyfriend remembered that downstairs there was like this water dispenser and he went down and he filled up every single bottle we have with the last of the water, and that is what got me through until I was out of surgery. I was in hospital for 2 days. The second day was the day I pretty much had to leave. I wasn't there for very long. In the morning of that day, I had this lunch looking lady, like if you think of a lunch lady in school, like the stereotypical lunch lady, she walked into the room and she said, all right, take your garment off. We have to do your first massage. I was like, oh, fuck. I'd heard really terrible stories about how bad your massages are. Nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to experience. It was the first time I'd taken off my garment and I was crying, screaming in pain, saying, I can't do this, please stop, please stop. Because mind you, my drain that I had was killing me. And I told her, I can't move, like I can't. And she just said, love, you gotta fucking toughen up. She could speak English. She's like, you gotta toughen up. You regret this surgery, don't you? You regret this, don't you?
Oh, okay. Yeah, oh, okay. Pipe down, bitch, pipe down.
I was just like, bitch, what the fuck? This is not what I need to hear just after I've had my fucking surgery. Like, give me a fucking break. I'm just a young, insecure little girl, just chill. She proceeded to do the massage by opening up my wound. She reopened up the ones in my legs. She reopened the ones in my arms. And she just poked it with like a little needle and reopened it. And then what she proceeded to do was just squish this bodily fluid out of me. She would grab it and just squeeze it. And that shit, oh my gosh, trigger warning, that shit was flying everywhere. It was traumatic. It was like a fucking murder scene. That was the worst experience of my life. And after she was done, I had to proceed to put my garment back on and literally get straight out of the hospital. I was telling the nurses, like, I can't do this. Not after that, I can't. I don't think I'm leaving the hospital today. I can't do it. I had to fucking leave. They were telling me I had to. They ended up organizing a pickup for me that day. They said that they'd give me one pickup from the hospital back to my new accommodation, and that was all paid for already. Get into the van that I was going home in. I actually had paid for a nurse as well to be with me over daytime and check my vitals and everything and make sure I was all good. She was a Turkish lady. She was really lovely, but we couldn't really speak. We had to use Google Translate. I get in the van with her and my boyfriend and we're on our way back, and the taxi driver says, like, you have to pay me. You have to pay me. Like, I'm not driving any further until you pay me. And we were like, what the fuck? Like, we're already paid for it. We have no more money. And he pulled up at an ATM, and I've heard all these really bad horror stories of how these taxi drivers sometimes can like take you to an ATM and beat you the fuck up until you give them money. So it was really lucky that we had the nurse there, because she started speaking to him in Turkish. She was screaming at him saying, no, like, they paid for it. Just take us to the hotel, take us to the hotel. And I spent 6 days at the hotel. Everything was seemingly all good. It was excruciating. It was awful. It was the worst time of my fucking life. Bent over, like, whoops, sorry. I was bent over like this, walking, I don't know if you can see, like this. Every time I was walking, I couldn't, because they had made it really tight with the incision here. So everywhere I walked, I was like a grandma. To use a wheelchair a lot of the time just to be able to walk, but I had to walk so that I could recover, obviously. Every day got a little bit easier, and then it got to the 6th day after my surgery, and I had my post-op appointment. And that day, I was also headed to the airport to go the fuck home and get out of Turkey. The post-op appointment was really good. It was the first time I had seen my scar across my abdomen. I looked at my body and I just said, oh my God, I look like a fucking Barbie. So happy, because it was the first time in my life that I had been able to see a flat stomach. That might sound crazy for a lot of people, but I've always been really overweight, and to just have a flat stomach was a dream for me, and I had one finally. But they had also told me that my drains weren't, they had to stay in because I was still producing a lot of fluid. Little did I know that there was a reason for that. So they sent me to the airport with 2 drains in my hips, my groin, and 1 drain in my butt crack. It ended up being a fucking nightmare as well. When I got to the airport, the airline told me that I could not fly because I had my drains in my body. They told me I'm not medically fit to fly. I gave them 2 letters from the surgeon and one from, I think it was one of the nurses, that said I was medically fit to fly. I've been cleared, I'm all good to fly. I was in a wheelchair, I had fucking drains hanging out of me. I probably did not look fit to fly, and quite frankly, I wasn't. I 100% wasn't. And I could feel myself getting like really like declined. I don't know if I was declining. Argued with them for about an hour, and I told them if they don't let me on that flight, I will go to the bathroom right now and take the drains out myself. Eventually, after having a call with one of the nurses and with the surgery company, they let me on the flight. Overjoyed by this news because I really wanted to get out of Turkey. There was bombs going off in Turkey at the time we were there. And if I wasn't going home on that plane, I would have gone home on another one. 15 hours. We flew straight from Istanbul to Melbourne. Luckily, we booked business, which, oh God, I don't know what I would have done if I was in economy. I couldn't do anything. I was sat like this, stretched over the entire flight. Forgot to mention a really important detail here. I was wrapped in puppy pads because I had fluid leaking out of my body because the massage lady, each day I was in the hotel, had to come in and reopen all my wounds. So every single day she was poking at them, reopening my wounds, and I have fluid leaking out of my body from my legs and my arms. So they decided to wrap me in literal puppy pads to stop me from leaking on the plane. I also had a really severe rash on my booty, all the way along my legs and all the way down to my feet. Really, really severe. Every hour on the plane, I had to stand up to make sure I didn't get deep vein thrombosis. So when I land back in Australia, my partner had organized with his brother, who was a paramedic, to be there for us pretty much immediately so that I could get health care if I needed it, and he could check all my vitals and everything was gonna be all good. He checks my vitals, everything's all good. He changes my dressings. Everything is seemingly okay. My drains were still filling up every single day like crazy. But on the second night of me being home at about 3 a.m., he checks my vitals and we go to empty the drains. The color of the fluid in the drains have changed. He checks my temperature and I have a temperature. I kind of knew at that stage that this was coming because my arms were feeling really hot. He took me straight to emergency that night. This is where the story gets fucked up once again. We arrive at a private hospital because I had private health. The private hospital wouldn't take me. The lady said that, one, I wouldn't be able to afford the private health, and I definitely don't have private health cover because I'm too young, is what she said. And I explained to her, no, I'm fine. The doctor said, no, she's fine. But the lady walked away, called an ambulance for me, and told me I'm going to be taken to a public hospital against my will. This really nasty nurse lady was saying all that stuff, but at the same time, the doctor was immediately working on me because he knew I had sepsis. He immediately got an IV and started pumping me with antibiotics before the ambulance arrived. I ended up at a public hospital in Melbourne, and I was treated like a COVID patient because at the same time, COVID was still a little bit prevalent. So every time a doctor or a nurse walked into my room, they had to get in a full hazmat suit. First morning I was admitted into hospital, they told me that I had sepsis. I had an infection and I was going to need to stay in hospital. Single day I was on IV antibiotics. I was also on tablet antibiotics as well. When I was in the hospital, they told me I wasn't allowed to wear my garment, so my body just swelled up because there was no compression, there was no lymphatic drainage, there was nothing. I was just laid on that bed. I felt like I was just left there to rot. Treated pretty much like shit because I had surgery overseas. In Australia, they don't really like you that much if you have surgery overseas. I was in hospital for about a week. Once I got home, while I was in hospital as well, I still had my drains in, and I still had them when I left the hospital. And they told me I had to keep them in for about another week. Had a home nurse that the hospital organized to come and check my vitals every single day and change my dressings because I was still not well. Mind you, this whole time, because I had my drains in, I was not allowed to have a shower. It had been, I think, about 2 weeks since I'd had a shower. I'm a person that showers every single day. I was desperate for a shower. 22 days after my surgery, I was able to get my drains out. It was a miracle dying for a shower. I went home that night to have the best shower of my life. Ever since, I haven't taken showers for granted. I was so lucky to have caught the infection at the time that I did, that I made a full recovery so fucking quick, like just like that. I wasn't really sure what to think. I was paranoid, I was scared. I was alone. After I found out I had sepsis, I'd messaged the surgical company and they denied any responsibility or any possibility of me getting an infection. Now you're probably wondering what the scar looks like now. I hope you can see. The scar runs right across my abdomen, hip to hip, and 3 years later, it honestly looks amazing if you ask me. Around my crotch area where it was pulling the most is where it's still, to this day, a little bit pink. Every single year that goes by, it gets better and better and better. I don't know if you can see this, but the scars on my legs where they had the liposuction, that's completely normal. You can barely even tell that there's anything there. All the scars are pretty much unrecognizable now, I would say, except for obviously the one on my abdomen. It has taken 3 years to get to this point. Up, down to my pelvic area is still numb. Can't feel anything, and if anyone touches it, I flip the fuck out. I was numb in my legs as well for about 2 years. I finally got it back. I can feel everything again in my legs. The cost of the surgery, a lot of people always ask me, it only cost me 13,000 AUD. And that was for the tummy tuck, liposuction on my stomach, liposuction on my back, which they did a terrible job of, but we'll talk about that another time. Arms, just this part of my arms, my legs, which was also terrible, and my chin. And then fat injection into my butt and my hips. And that was including like the whole package with the flights included. In total, with the flights and the surgery and the new hotel that we had to book and pay out of pocket for, it totaled to be around $30,000. Even with all of that, it was still cheaper than going to America, and it was still cheaper than getting it done in Australia, which is fucking insane. Would I ever do it again? No, I would never, ever in a million years have surgery in Turkey ever again. You couldn't fucking pay me to do it. Would I ever have the surgery again in another country? Yes, I would. It has helped with my confidence a whole lot more, especially considering the job that I do. Emotionally, I think was what impacted me the most. Like I said, it's taken me 3 years to even speak about this story, and some parts I can't even talk about again in this video just because it fucked me up a little bit. I can't cry. I think I have PTSD from it. To be someone that was not squeamish or anything, wanted to be a surgeon myself, actually, a trauma surgeon, so nothing like that ever freaked me out before. But now, I can't deal with a lot of surgery things or cuts or anything like that because it makes me think about my surgery a lot. It had a very big emotional impact on me. But I really want to share my story because I see a lot of girls, especially in my industry, talk about plastic surgery like it's nothing. Like, oh yeah, I got this procedure done and I instantly woke up and looked better. And then I got this procedure done, and then I got this procedure done, and then I got this procedure done. And so many celebrities and stuff do the same thing, but you're messing around with your life every single time you go under anesthesia or cut yourself open or change something about yourself that isn't meant to be there. So I hope that my story can at least be a little bit of like a insight into what plastic surgery is really like, because I walked in thinking that I was, I wasn't going to be one of those people. I was healthy as could be. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do anything like that. So I was as healthy as I could be. And it still happened to me. I was still one of those people that didn't walk away without anything going wrong. You could be one of those people too. It's not worth risking your life over chasing a beauty standard. Understand how much you might want that surgery, but it is important to research things thoroughly and really think about whether that's the route you want to take. Because I was one of the lucky ones that got out of this. Some people don't. Some people die on the table, and it happens every day. So yeah, I don't regret my surgery, but I regret every single way that I went about it, that you can learn from my experience so that you don't have to go through it like I did. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. I will always answer messages and DMs about this topic, because there is nothing I want more than for you to survive your plastic surgery. Thank you so much for watching. I will be posting videos every single week, so make sure you check them out. And don't forget to subscribe. Bye!